Comfort is killing your growth, and boredom is trying to save you. Kia knockouts. Welcome to the very first installment of Thoughts That Keep Me Up at Night with Kin. I'm Kin. I can't believe we're here. Even though this episode is pre-recorded, I still feel the anxiety as if I were going entirely live, and I'm just overwhelmed with a lot of feelings, but I'm just really glad that we're here, and this is 2 years in the making, so I feel like it went from taking forever to just sneaking up on me. But before I kick this episode off, I just want to give you a little bit of an introductory as to who I am and why I would appreciate it if you lent me some of your time. So there are a few things about this podcast that I feel like you need to know right off the bat. Number one, if you are an audience member that is new and you have no idea who I am, and you're not coming from my other channel, which is a vlog channel, then you probably don't have a clue as to my background. Long story long, I have an autoimmune disease that keeps me at the whim of my body, and I have to go off however I feel. Though you get an episode every week, I must forewarn that these episodes are pre-recorded. I try to keep them as relevant and as consistent as I possibly can to meet the tone of this podcast, but due to the fact that I don't always feel good and sometimes sitting in front of a camera is just as hard as doing anything else, I can't always just on a whim film. Hence the reasoning for pre-recording. Moving on, number two. Because of my limited abilities, I had to find a way that I could contribute to society in one way or another, because we are on a timeline where sitting still and saying nothing just doesn't work. We're past that. We're past that point. Silence is compliance as far as I'm concerned. So those of us who don't stand for something are part of the problem. And I needed to stand for something. And since I couldn't go serve our country like I initially wanted, I know it's a long story. Maybe we'll get into it one day, but there was a time that I wanted to go serve our country. And since I can't do that, and I have no background in political science whatsoever, I definitely am not interested in running for a position of power. I had to figure out how to contribute to the people. So I decided to create this podcast where I talk about the innate base foundation to a lot of issues that we experience today. I use history, perspective, dark humor, and a lot of other factual basis as my fuel for these topics. I will add that these are just my personal beliefs and motivations and reflect on no entity or no person other than myself, just to be clear. The third reason that I decided to create this podcast was boredom, which is the topic of our first episode. So, enough of me rambling, let's just get into it. Let me put it this way. Even in a world full of constant stimuli, I find myself getting bored on almost a daily basis, which is why I want to break this down. And if you continue with me down this journey, you are going to see that I consistently unpack my episodes in 4 acts. Where it came from, how it evolved, why it matters now, and what's next. Before we let history cook, I want to give a well-deserved nod to our sponsor, B0 Plastic, a company that is helping me feel halfway decent about being a human being in 2025. We will definitely revisit them and their mission in just a little bit. But if you cannot wait, their link is also in the description below. So as I said, this podcast was created for half a dozen different reasons. The third reason being boredom. Because for an overthinker, myself, boredom is not just boring. Boredom is quite literally the gateway drug to the thoughts that keep us up at night. Boom. See what I did there? If you will. Imagine being an ancient human being. Definitely not having a word for boredom, but absolutely experiencing the feeling. Could it be restlessness in idle winters? Spiritual hunger in agrarian societies? Craving for social interaction in an isolated environment? Throughout time, religion and philosophy have applied their own versions of what boredom could be. For example, early Christianity classified boredom as acedia, or spiritual apathy, whereas the Greek philosophers believed that that kind of stillness brought awareness and deeper thought. Then, of course, if you fast forward to the 19th century and the Industrial Revolution, it was a time when structured labor created this idea that idle time was somehow suspicious. And that concreted boredom as laziness rather than a moment of pause for necessary innovation. So my question is, if boredom has been around since monks stared at monastery walls and philosophers waited for the ink to dry, then maybe, bear with me, maybe boredom is not just historical. Maybe it's hardwired. Now, as any other creature of this earth, our brain has a type of alert system. Neuroscience has consistently concluded that boredom is linked to us feeling misaligned and or unfulfilled by our goals and values. And I've noticed that there are people who mistake their anxiety as boredom or boredom as their anxiety. And I just want to clarify that they're not the same thing. Yes, both do stem from unmet needs, but they both push us in different ways. One pushes us toward preservation, and the other pushes us toward reevaluation. As I aforementioned, and to no one's surprise, capitalist culture has basically reframed boredom as laziness and promoted it as a bad thing rather than a moment for us to reevaluate our choices and search a little further for all of those pieces or angles. As I aforementioned, and to no one's surprise, capitalist culture has reframed boredom to inherently come off as laziness, instead of it being a moment to pause, reevaluate, and rethink one's actions and direction, which for our critical thinking and our progression, it's necessary. That time that we have for those realizations is necessary, not necessarily a bad thing. The fact of the matter is that our brains did not evolve in a world full of constant notifications and doom scrolling, which raises another question. In a time where we can fill every single moment with something, what happens to boredom as a guidepost? Before we answer that question though, let's take a beat and talk about an entity that took boredom and ran with it. Our sponsor. Whether you're a major YouTuber, an insightful philosopher, or just another carbon-based life form trying to make it through Thursdays, you still need everyday stuff that doesn't make you feel like crap for buying it. Introducing Be Zero Plastic, a company constantly proving that you don't have to choose between sustainability and affordability. Every single product sold is 100% environmentally friendly. There is absolutely no greenwashing. Individually vetted by the company founder to ensure credibility and quality. And of course, everything is made or produced in the USA because in order to think global, you have to act local. And as I mentioned, accessible and affordable because saving the planet really shouldn't cost you rent. Some of the products sold on their website include things like toothbrush, dental floss, laundry detergent, lint balls, dish soap, dishcloths, trash bags, and waste bags. Now, if that sounds like your cup of organic tea, then at the end of this episode, I encourage you to scroll down to the description below, click on that link provided, and use code KIN, that's KIN, for 10% off your very first order. It is a ridiculously easy way to support yourself, our planet, my sponsor, and of course, this podcast. As I was saying, the decline of true downtime and the lack of creative boredom has created a huge disruption in our default mode network activation. I know, it's a mouthful. And like I said, boredom and anxiety are not the same thing, but if anything, this type of boredom, or this type of pressure put on boredom, I should say, can increase the anxiety. Because of all of this online repetition and algorithmic sameness, it's literally creating political apathy and social disengagement rather than making it stronger. And I'll say it again, avoiding boredom and staying trapped in our safe little comfort zones and unchallenging routines only dull our self-awareness and definitely limit our critical thinking skills. I kind of feel like for too long, boredom has been cast as the villain in our monotonously hyper-connected lives. And perhaps it's time for the ultimate rewrite. What if instead of trying to escape it, we tried listening to it? Maybe it's not about eliminating boredom at all, but reclaiming it. The fact of the matter is, if we treat boredom like a diagnostic tool that emits data rather than an inconvenience that prohibits us from doing what we want, there is a very strong chance that it may open our minds and give us opportunities behind a different decision that we may have otherwise not noticed. There is a way to combat this thinking, and that's basically by creating structured boredom breaks. By doing this, we create an environment that sparks insight and fuels the desire for us to reach for more out of our own lives. Because the reality is, it's not too late. There is still plenty of time to teach ourselves and the future generations that boredom can be an endorsement to pursue meaningful change, not just a warning sign to do something. Okay, I feel like we covered a lot, so let's just quickly recap. We covered where boredom came from, how it evolved, why it matters now, and what we can do to change our perspective on it. So here are my final thoughts. When you're sitting in your room and you have the urge to pick up your phone and doom scroll, I encourage you to do the opposite. Try something else. Let yourself sit in that feeling of boredom and see what you come up with. Unless, of course, you're picking up your phone to watch this podcast, in which case I have nothing to say. Please, please, please remember to go check out Be Zero Plastic if you're interested in zero plastic alternatives in a one-stop shop. Thank you again to Be Zero Plastic and all of you for making this podcast happen. Next week, we talk about something near and dear to my heart, and that is the Constitution and why keeping it alive could and should be critical to our rights. Remember to subscribe if you have not already. Click that little bell if you want to be notified when that next episode drops. We have a new episode every Thursday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can find this podcast here on YouTube and soon to be on Spotify. Thanks for joining me on another Restless Night Knockouts. I can't wait to see you next week. Until then, say hey to the dark side.